Hey, dude.
It's a little wild and a little strange when you make your home out on the range. Start your horse and come along, but you can't get it right if you can't hold on. Singing, yippee-ki-yay,
Yippee-ki-yay, what?
like the cowboys say.
Sing it again now.
Yippee-ki-yay,
Get along, little doggies.
till the break of day.
Better watch out for those man-eating jackrabbits and that killer cacti. Hey, dude.
Howdy partners, and welcome back to the channel. Man, I really love the Wild West. It's a place where cowboys, outlaws, and lawmen battled it out in dusty towns, where people would pack up their whole lives and head westward for the chance of a better life, assuming they didn't die of dysentery along the way. A setting where cowboys and criminals had duels at high noon, where people gathered at saloons to drink, listen to music, flirt with the working girls, and get into huge bar brawls. Like the golden age of piracy, it's an era defined by adventure and shrouded in myth, making the Wild West a perfect place to set stories in. You have a whole genre of movies, tons of books, and of course, video games. When it comes to gaming though, I feel like the setting is seriously underrepresented. Nowadays, when you think of a video game set in the Wild West, you think Red Dead Redemption or its sequel, and that's about it when it comes to AAA or more mainstream gaming. If you want to quench your thirst for more cowboy antics, you need to look to smaller studios or the indie space, with games like Evil West, Weird West, or Blood West. You know, we need more creativity when it comes to naming these games, though I guess I'm not one to talk considering the titles I give my videos. But during the mid-2000s, we'd have games like Gun, Call of Juarez, Dark Watch, and of course the subject of today's video, Red Dead Revolver, the often forgotten and overlooked older brother to the Red Dead Redemption series. But why is that? Were its younger brothers so exceptional that they eclipsed anything Revolver achieved? Or is it because the game is set in a different continuity and doesn't share the same characters and story as Red Dead Redemption, meaning fans of those games have no reason to come back to this one? Or was it an alright game that had the misfortune of being released in 2004? A year that gave us absolute bangers like Half-Life 2, Halo 2, GTA San Andreas, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and so much more. Same year as the Getaway Black Monday now that I think about it. Normally, I do my usual segue and just say, let's find out, or let's get into it, before diving into the meat and potatoes of the video. But in this case, I'll give you the answer right off the bat. It's D, all of the above. A combination of all those factors pretty much buried any merit or notoriety this game had, which is a damn shame, as while it doesn't really compare to Red Dead Redemption, which I consider a masterpiece, or its sequel, whose story I absolutely love, but god does this game feel way too long for its own good. Red Dead Revolver has its own unique charm, a simpler and shorter game that isn't chasing realism and embraces the fact that it's a video game. So join me as I go over my playthrough of the game and why I ended up having so much fun with it. In Red Dead Revolver, we play as Red Harlow, your stereotypical gruff cowboy of few words, and on a mission of revenge. So really no different from 99% of the other leads in westerns we've seen over the decades. Cliched, sure, but it works perfectly fine with the game's tone and setting. Red Dead Revolver is an old-school action-adventure game, lacking the open-world environment of its younger brothers, instead going for a more arcade-like, traditional, and linear level structure. We start off the game playing a younger version of Red, reliving the events that turned him into the man he is today. It begins with Red's father Nate returning home and announcing to his wife and son that they're rich. He and his partner discovered a large gold vein in the mountains, and the two commissioned a pair of special revolvers to commemorate their new partnership. Don't forget, this is a super important plot point that'll pop up later. Taking control of Red, we'll get a brief tutorial on the shooting mechanics, which makes use of manual aiming. Though it does seem to have some aim assist, so moving the cursor to aim at a target isn't too bad. The controls are pretty standard and what you'd expect from a third-person shooter, using the left trigger to aim, analog stick to move the cursor, and right trigger to shoot. I had at first assumed you could only reload by completely emptying your clip, but as it turns out you can reload by pressing Y on Xbox. I only bring this up because I didn't figure this out until like 2/3 of the way through the game. So if you see me never reloading in my footage, that's why.
Red! Carlo! What are you doing to my pots and pans?
Now don't henpeck the boy. Next trip into town, I'll buy you a whole bunch of new pots and pans.
After we've mastered the art of shooting pots and pans, the game puts our skills to use when bandits raid Red's home. Rushing to help his father, the kid is surprisingly effective at killing the men attacking his house. He's also completely unfazed about taking a life. Yeah, it's self-defense, but Red can't be older than, what, 14 here? You'd think there would be a bit of hesitation, or a line like, "Pa, I can't take a life." But nope, he just springs into action when his parents are in danger. Guess kids were made of sterner stuff back in the olden days. During combat, you're rewarded money for every successful shot you land, getting a bonus for landing headshots, and a combo multiplier for killing multiple enemies quickly. Said money can be spent at shops we encounter later in the game. Despite our gunslinging skills, Red's parents tragically end up dying, with the man responsible getting ready to put the kid down too. Then this happens. Like, holy shit, he just shot that guy's arm off. Like, I know he's holding a hand cannon, but I didn't expect it to pack a punch like that. Managing to get away after disarming Colonel Darren, and permanently scarring his own hand, Red will have to survive on his own until he can get revenge for the death of his parents. Skipping ahead, I don't know, a decade later? It's not really said how much time has passed since that day. We find an adult Red wandering around with a dog in tow. We then meet a kindly old man who warns us about the danger up ahead, and offers to sell us something to protect ourselves with. Despite what I was expecting, outside of this interaction with him and one later on, he isn't really the game's equivalent of a recurring merchant. Instead, at the beginning of each level, you're given the opportunity to buy new weapons and various items. While limited at first, you'll have an assortment of revolvers, rifles, shotguns, and throwables you can buy over the course of the game. How good a weapon is or isn't is determined by its stats, broken down into its ammo count, reload time, range, damage, and accuracy. Typically, revolvers and pistols tend to be the most balanced, offering some good stopping power at medium range. Rifles excel at long-range combat at the expense of damage, and shotguns have the best stopping power but terrible accuracy unless an enemy is right up in your face. The throwables are more of a mixed bag. You have some, like the knife, which are decently accurate and can be used for more silent kills. Then there's the dynamite, which, while powerful, can be inaccurate to throw, and has a long fuse time, giving enemies plenty of time to run away before it explodes. After accidentally leaving the old man's shop without buying anything, seriously, what idiot thought it was a good idea to make A the close shop button, and Y the buy button? We're accosted by some ruffians and thrown into another tutorial section. First going over the cover mechanics, zooming in with a rifle, and most importantly, Deadeye. The iconic ability from the Red Dead Redemption series actually originated in this game. Once you filled up a bar on your Deadeye meter, easily done by just shooting enemies, you can push in the right thumbstick to initiate Deadeye. This will slow down time and let you scroll your cursor over an enemy, place hit markers, and then shoot them several times all at once.
It's high noon.
It's not quite as OP as it is in the Redemption series, mainly because you can't manually place the hit markers yourself. Instead, just scrolling over an enemy's body as it dots automatically. Still, it can come in a pinch, especially when you're fighting multiple enemies and need to thin the herd. After killing all the bandits, the old man suggests we turn them into the local sheriff to collect on their bounties. Sounds like a solid idea, old-timer. Just gonna borrow your wagon so I can carry their corpses. At the end of a level, it'll list the name of a bounty you killed, the amount of money you accumulated during your shootout, and your overall performance for the level. You're scored on your accuracy, damage taken, completion speed, and your best combo, gaining some unlockables for a good and excellent rating. Unlockables vary by level. Sometimes it's a new weapon to buy, or an upgrade to your health and Deadeye meter. Most of the time though, it's a character and stage for the game's showdown mode. A multiplayer free-for-all where you and friends can get into chaotic shootouts. It's pretty fun, even when playing against the AI, though it's extremely unbalanced as some characters' weapons and special abilities are way too broken. Pulling up to the next town, despite the amount of work it took to drag these disgusting corpses here, the sheriff can't pay us anything for them, as the Ugly Gang have taken over his small town, said gang making themselves Red's enemy almost immediately.
That damn dog gone and leaved himself all over them fancy boots of yours. Damn varmint!
Time to go John Wick all over these assholes. During this shootout, we'll be taught how to dodge roll, which feels very stiff and slow, and I practically never use it throughout this entire playthrough. Maybe like once or twice, but I never really felt like it actually contributed to combat or saved me in a pinch. And then we're given a tutorial on how to duel. Despite how you might think, dueling isn't about pulling your gun out and getting a shot off faster than your opponent. No, it's basically a more annoying version of Deadeye, as after drawing your gun, you have to move the cursor, which will slowly move in a given direction, and press the fire button to tag the enemy with hit markers. There's 3 different markers: yellow indicating a poor shot, red indicating a hit, and bright red indicating a critical hit. You can only tag an enemy 6 times, and will need as many red hits as you can land to guarantee a kill. Duels won't be too bad at first, but get progressively harder as the game goes on, especially when you have to shoot more than one opponent. The problem is just how stiff and awkward it can be to move the cursor over the enemy to get your shots. Made more annoying as you can accidentally end the duel early while moving the analog stick, pretty much guaranteeing you'll fail if you didn't get enough hits. After clearing up more of the gang, we're thrown into a boss fight against their leader, Ugly Chris. Boss characters can't be injured as easily as normal enemies, usually taking little damage from even your best weapons or headshots. Instead, you have to stun them, which will drop their defense and let you unload on them for extra damage. For the most part, they all share the same weakness of just shooting them in the back to stun them, though it's not always the easiest task to get around them so you can pull it off, as they'll have varied moves and tactics that can pin you down or make the window to stun them rare. With Ugly Chris here, he'll use the sheriff as a human shield to protect himself, and if you accidentally kill the old man, you'll fail and have to restart the encounter. While getting around him is a viable option, if you're careful with your aim or just use Deadeye, you can aim for his exposed legs and arm in order to stun him and have him drop the sheriff. Not too difficult, but can feel like it drags since he'll pick up the old man every time he recovers and gets back on his feet. After successfully wiping out the Ugly Gang, the sheriff's daughter Katie will beg us to get him to Brimstone so he can see a doctor and get his wounds healed. Hope that wasn't my fault. I did accidentally shoot him a few times during the boss fight. Boarding a train to the next town, it's not a smooth ride as bandits will attempt to hijack and rob the train. Despite my love of train levels, this one feels a little underwhelming, mostly because of this obnoxious section where you have to jump or duck under platforms, which is trickier than it seems because of how floaty red can feel when jumping, so it's easy to screw up the timing. The end of the level kind of blows too, as you have to protect a train engineer for 3 minutes while bandits attack. Not difficult, as you can shoot them off their horses before they can even get close to the guy. It just feels boring, as you're mostly standing around during those 3 minutes waiting for another wave to spawn. Arriving in Brimstone, we meet Sheriff Bartlett, who helps the other sheriff and offers us some bounty hunter work. Brimstone will now serve as a hub in between missions, though it's a rather basic one. Outside of wandering around and talking to the residents here, you can visit the general goods store to buy items, though these items exist to unlock more characters in the showdown mode, or pages in Red's journal that gives us more information about the world and its characters. We have a gun store with a few more options over the usual pre-level shop, letting you upgrade a few weapons on top of buying more. A saloon where there isn't much to do, but if you talk to the barkeep, he'll sell you an upgrade to the Deadeye meter. Or you can check out these polygonal boobs. Then there's the bank, which feels more like set dressing, as outside of being sent here later on to meet another character, all you can do here is buy stages for the showdown multiplayer. And finally, there's the sheriff's office, which will begin the next chapter each time you enter and talk to him, with our first bounty being a guy by the name of Pig Josh.
Excuse me. Excuse me, sir.
I seem to have found myself in a most unfortunate situation. If you would be kind enough to help me.
This distinguished and English gentleman is Jack Swift, a fellow bounty hunter who's gotten himself captured by the traveling circus Pig Josh travels with. We're then promptly ambushed by said traveling circus, made up of bandits and little clown men. After fighting them off, I'll free Jack Swift and the two of us will team up to take on another wave of circus freaks, this time with a Gatling gun. Once all of them are finished off, Pig Josh will finally show himself and start a boss fight.
You gonna blow up real good, cowboy!
For anyone who's played Armored Core 6, you know how during the first week or two after launch, the helicopter, and especially Balteus, had this reputation for funneling out more inexperienced or casual players? Looking around online, it seems Pig Josh used to have a similar reputation, cause holy shit he can be tough as hell if you don't know what you're doing. First off, despite the fact he's supposed to be helping you, Jack Swift is jack shit in this fight, as it doesn't seem he can even hit Josh from where he is. As for Pig Josh himself, like the fight against Ugly Chris, you need to have him expose his back so you can shoot him and stun him, and then unload on him for tons of damage. And that's the only way to get this fight done, as if you try shooting him from the front, he'll usually deflect your shots with the metal gauntlets on his arm. Even if you do manage to hit him, the damage is pitiful if he isn't stunned. Problem is, getting around Pig Josh and taking shots at his back almost feels impossible, as despite his size, this fucker is fast, and can instantly catch up to you the second he spots you. And when Pig Josh does catch you, boom! He blows both of you up and sends you flying with a ton of damage. If you got good reflexes, you might be able to dodge roll at the last second and avoid the explosion, giving you an opportunity to shoot him while he recovers, but it's risky. He gives you a free shot more or less when the boss fight starts, as you're far enough away where he can't see you, and you can easily get a shot on his back to stun him and then unload on him. From there, the strategy is to get him stuck on the map's geometry, luring him up a building as he follows you, or going to the edge of the map and running around him. It's a simple enough fight once you understand what to do, but it can be challenging if you're not able to avoid his explosions. You can try and cheese the fight by climbing up this one little shack here, and just taking shots at him from above. If you're standing on the right spot, he'll miss with his explosion under you, giving you some free shots. But since he's not stunned, you're not doing a lot of damage, and it can take forever. After finally killing Pig Josh, Jack Swift will thank us for saving him before he leaves to deal with another bounty. This time, Professor Perry and the rest of the circus crew. And surprisingly, we end up taking control of Jack for this section.
You cowards! Ugh! Somebody let me free! Ugh! Oh, Mister, please, you gotta cut me loose! Mister, please!
Several times throughout the game, we'll swap over to another character to learn a little more about them, or to fill in the story after their meetings with Red. And it's not a simple palette swap either, as they all have a unique starting weapon and special ability. In Jack's case, he dual wields pistols, and his special ability lets him instantly lock onto nearby enemies and empty both guns into them. During this level, we have to protect Katie, the sheriff's daughter that Red met previously, as she was captured by Perry and his circus crew. Thankfully, the enemy AI doesn't really seem interested in trying to hurt her, and will just stick to attacking Jack instead. After you've killed enough members of the circus, Professor Perry will finally greet us with his presence.
Jack, what an unpleasant surprise. That wasn't very nice, Jack. Don't bet on making it out again.
So Perry throws out whatever sense of realism you may have thought this game had. On paper, Pig Josh feels like he could work in the other Red Dead games, but the fact he can somehow tank his own explosions sorta negates that. The Professor here, on the other hand, can just straight up teleport around the map using fire. Somehow. I'm not complaining, mind you. This more fantastical element makes for a more fun setting, and more importantly keeps boss fights from feeling the same. That said, fuck this fight, because Christ it feels like it takes forever. Perry will warp around the map constantly and disappear the second you manage to spot him and try to get a shot off. Katie will give you a hint on how to fight him, telling you he only appears where you're not looking, so logically you want to face away from him and wait till he decides to fully spawn. Except it really doesn't work like that, as throughout this encounter, even when I was looking away from him, it was random on how long it would take before he'd just stop and try to fight me. And while this is going on, I'm still fighting an endless wave of his crew, along with someone I assume was supposed to be like his right hand, named Atlas. He's holding a shield in front of himself to protect from bullets, but the dumbass neglected to cover his head, so he's easy to take out with a few headshots. Now, when you can actually get a shot in on Perry, he doesn't need to be stunned and takes a lot of damage from headshots. However, once you shoot off enough health, he'll move on to the next phase of the fight, reappear on top of the water tank, and drink some surge soda to recover his health. If you don't shoot him fast enough, he can heal himself back up to 100%, effectively negating the last phase of the fight. And then he'll do this bullshit like 3 more times. And really, that's the problem with this fight. As Perry isn't really all that hard, he just drags this fight out for so long. If the mechanics of the fight changed, or he gained some new abilities or something, it wouldn't be so bad. Instead, it feels like I'm just constantly restarting this encounter. After finally putting a bullet through Perry's face and rescuing Katie, she'll tell Jack that if he's strapped for money, he should participate in the upcoming Battle Royale in Brimstone. Swapping back over to Red, it's time to go after another bounty, this time Bad Bessie. This level takes us through a valley requiring a bit of careful platforming so we don't fall off a cliff and instantly die. Most enemies here will engage Red from afar, usually on the other side of the valley, making for annoying encounters where you have to use cover to protect yourself, and pick off the enemies on your side first. It also introduces a new enemy type, this big burly guy who tosses boulders at you, which while easy to dodge can knock you on your ass for a ton of damage, and make you easy pickings for other enemies.
Hey, friend.
Partway through, we're reunited with that old-timer we met near the beginning of the game, and need to protect him from Bessie's gang. Considering the time period when this game was released, I'm sure most of you might be expecting a frustrating escort mission, with tons of resets because of terrible NPC AI. But nope, like 2 seconds after meeting him, he takes a shot to the dome and that's it. I was wondering at first if it was meant to be a subversion of the whole escort mission idea, but I looked it up and you can actually save the old man, and we'll get $1,500 for doing so. Whoops. Oh well. Interestingly, getting 360 no-scope didn't kill him, and just knocked him out. Lucky him. Eventually, we'll finally confront Bad Bessie in a boss fight, and she's considerably easier than the last ones we've had. She'll engage you with a group of her men, and after taking them out, it's a straightforward shootout with her. Bad Bessie occasionally pulling her whip out to attack, but that's about it. After we bring her in, we got one last bounty to go after, Mr. Black. We'll arrive at a ghost town and move through a linear row of buildings, killing off the bandits belonging to the bounty's gang. Then we confront a guy who I assumed was Mr. Black. He's got voice lines and a pretty cool design, but turns out he's like his number 2 or something, and his name is Jesse. I have to engage him and his 2 goons in a duel, and this is when I learned that failing a duel isn't an instant loss with certain encounters, as Jesse still shoots me after I killed his 2 men, but it just proceeded into a normal gunfight afterwards, just with half my health gone. The real Mr. Black is this gangly looking guy with a coffin strapped to his back. At first I thought he was going to flail the thing around, shooting bullets and missiles from it, kinda like in Gungrave. Ah man, you guys remember Gungrave on PS2? Such a good game. I loved its over-the-top style and its main character. I was so hyped when they announced the new game, Gungrave Gore, but apparently the game is shit and feels more like a generic asset flip wearing the series skin than a proper sequel. Such a bummer. Maybe I'll cover that series in the future. Well, Mr. Black isn't pulling off any stylish Gungrave shenanigans. No, instead he just has a Gatling gun inside of his coffin that he'll set up to shoot you with. It's another easier boss, as after you clear his minions, you just need to circle around Mr. Black as he's firing, taking cover to avoid his shots and then unloading into him before he reloads and moves. Despite another job well done, the sheriff stiffs us on our pay. Apparently the bank hasn't received its shipment of gold. Well, that's just unacceptable. I'm gonna give this Mr. Peabody who works at the bank a piece of my mind.
Well, why not just sell up to the governor? You could always move into town and work in the saloon.
The saloon? How dare you? I just need one more week.
I don't think the owner of the bank would approve.
Well, maybe I can speak with him myself.
I'm sorry, but the governor is too busy for the likes of you.
To hell with that evil son of a bitch. He's mined enough gold out of Bear Mountain. What the hell does he want my damn ranch?
Ma'am?
That little firecracker is Annie Stokes, local ranch owner and our next playable character. Angry about the governor trying to take her ranch, she'll mention that the bastard is already rich from mining Bear Mountain. Something our lead overhears. Red inquires and wants to know more about this gold mine, and since the bank manager won't fess up, we'll have to catch up with Annie to learn more from her. Returning to her ranch, poor Annie's day just gets worse and worse, as it looks like her last ranch hand has abandoned her for the governor. Also, there's a bunch of assholes running around trying to burn down her ranch and animals. Annie starts off with a rifle, and her special move is an explosive shot that has a wide spread and does a ton of damage. Perfect for any up-close encounters. After taking out the first few guys attacking her ranch, they'll manage to set her barn on fire, requiring her to shoot the locks off the animal pens and free her livestock. We'll then get a segment of more bandits running down a hill from afar, requiring Annie to take cover behind a haystack and pick them off. Finally, we'll enter a boss battle against these two guys riding on buffaloes. They're not too bad. They can feel a little annoying because of how fast they move on their mounts, but they all had a habit of getting stuck on objects and just letting me hit them easier. Also, you have the option to hop onto one of your own bulls to chase after and shoot them, which I wouldn't say makes it easier to fight them exactly. More like since you have your bull auto-moving in a given direction, it's just a little easier to focus on shooting them. After killing the Bison brothers, Red will show up too late to help with the action. Instead, he inquires about the gold mine again, Annie telling him to head back to Brimstone and try finding out at the saloon. Before parting ways though, he does offer Annie a way in saving her ranch.
Ma'am?
5,000 pieces in gold. This'll help me keep my ranch.
There's that Battle Royale again. The way it's constantly brought up in-game, I bet it's going to be this awesome contest we'll get to participate in. Taking Annie's advice, we head down to the saloon and overhear a couple of old-timers discussing a one-armed man. Before finding out whether their story is about Shanks, or Guts, or Yamamoto, Red will jump the gun and interrupt them, asking how said man lost his arm, but the old guys blow him off and tell him to hit the road. Taking a different approach and asking politely this time, and by politely I mean with a broken bottle, the old men will call for help, with a giant guy by the name of Sam answering the call. Cue a bar brawl. And this level fucking sucks. First of all, you're stripped of all your weapons, so you can only use melee attacks or throw beer bottles you find lying around. Second, there are 3 saloon girls you need to protect, and unlike before with Katie, the enemy AI pretty much only focuses on the girls, running over to grab and toss them around. If a single one of them dies, you'll fail and have to do the whole brawl all over again. But protecting the girls is easier said than done, mainly because they run all over the place, and the guys chasing them can easily pick your ass up and toss you halfway across the room, stunning you long enough for them to do serious damage to the girls, or just pick your ass up and toss you again. It's an insanely frustrating encounter, as there doesn't seem to be a real strategy on what to do, and feels like dumb luck if you can take out the bandits before they kill the girls, or you. After several tries, I got lucky by just running behind the bar. This lured a few guys to me and I managed to pick them off with punches and kicks. From there, I just slowly worked my way through them and then to the second floor to finish off the rest. Even then, I cut it real close, as the girls were still on really low health towards the end.
Well, you're pretty good in a fight, stranger. The only problem is you lost your guns in all the ruckus. Here you go. Looks like you still got some business with them brothers. They ain't what you call kindly fellers.
Open the damn door, woman.
Well, good luck to you. But I gotta look out for myself, so this door is getting locked behind you.
Now armed again, this gets considerably easier, first starting off with a duel, killing a few waves of bandits, and then getting into a boss fight with Sam. Like the last few fights, we have to take out the enemies flanking him first before we can take him on. Sam starts the encounter throwing barrels at you, kinda like the boulder throwing enemies from before, but if you shoot him while he's holding it over his head, the barrel will break and stun him, opening Sam up for damage. During the second half of the fight, he'll hop down and fight you face to face, turning into a bullfight boss where you have to avoid his charges. Like the other big boy bosses, Sam will tank your shots unless you stun him, which requires leading him into these knocked over tables. Then just empty a few clips into his back, and it's a job well done. Unfortunately, the sheriff shows up and arrests Red, which I was going to call bullshit on, but then I remembered he did technically start this whole mess. Also, he's like the only guy left alive in the saloon, so someone had to probably go down for this. While sitting in jail, Red reveals his reasons for trying to find the one-armed man, the sheriff realizing that he's the son of Nate Harlow. He'll then tell us what led to the events of Red's parents being killed, flashing back to the past and giving us a new character to play as, General Diego.
We have those gringos exactly where we want them. Generalissimo, you're not planning to take on the entire Yankee army. You don't expect me to answer a stupid question like that. Prepare the artillery!
General Javier Diego used to be a general in the Mexican army before defecting and starting his own faction. He's a deluded bastard who's convinced of his own greatness, and a shitty leader who will kill his men on a whim. His level has him leading its troops against a US cavalry regiment, and it seriously sucks ass. Like, this is easily the worst level of the entire game. First off is Diego himself. While his rifle, El Martillo de Dios, is fairly effective and has a badass name, he lacks a special ability like the other characters. Next is the entire level itself, as you're effectively fighting a war against an almost endless wave of American troops and constant cannon fire. It's a huge open area with little room for cover or protection, meaning you basically have to keep moving or else get hit by a cannonball or shot by a troop who sneaks up around you. The level goes through 3 different phases as you progress. First, you'll fight alongside 2 of your troops to try and push back the cavalry. When that fails, General Diego will try to even the odds by having his troops take out the Americans' cannons, which you do by firing a flare at a cannon to mark it for your own troops to blow up. This flare takes the slot of General Diego's ability, and while technically usable on enemy troops, you're better off just going for headshots. After you've taken out enough cannons, or enough time has passed, it'll move into the 3rd phase where the general decides to say screw it, and blow up the bridge to prevent the Americans from advancing. During this phase, he has to protect his 2 men as they run around the bridge planting charges. If both men die before the charges are sent, then you fail. So what's the problem exactly? No checkpoints. If at any point during all this madness you die or fail the objective, you have to do everything from the beginning all over again. Since, you're essentially in the middle of a war, it's a grueling and punishing level that demands absolute perfection from you. There's just so many things you need to be on top of, and there's no real safe areas on the map where you can take a stand against the enemy. It doesn't help that during the 3rd phase, you have no idea how long it's going to take to set the charges, so it can almost feel like it's going to go on forever. After successfully blowing the bridge, the general's forces will capture some Americans along with a random prospector. That prospector happens to be Griff, Nate Harlow's partner and the guy he discovered the gold vein with in Bear Mountain. At the threat of execution, he offers to give the general gold, specifically half a stake in the gold vein he discovered. However, since half is already owned by Red's dad, this may end up being a bit of a snafu, though General Diego figures he can resolve said problem by killing Nate. This brings things full circle as we now know why Nate was killed. He was betrayed by Griff, though where that bastard is hasn't been revealed yet. Red, now knowing the truth, has set his sights on General Diego, and thanks to a tip from the sheriff about weekly gold deliveries he makes to the governor, Red now knows where to find him. This next level is much bigger and open-ended than what preceded it, as we actually have to use a map to get around. Though your objective is so close to where you begin, it feels kinda unnecessary. We'll start by sneaking around and picking off General Diego's men, before stealing a horse and chasing after his stagecoach. I guess this is technically a boss battle, as a few guys will shoot at you from the coach, and it does have a Gatling gun on it, but it's easy to dodge fire and the stagecoach goes down really fast. Our easy victory is short-lived, as Guts wannabe Colonel Darren gets the drop on Red and knocks him out. Thankfully, General Diego is an idiot and decides to keep us alive, giving our next playable character the chance to go save him. Shadow Wolf is a member of the Red Wolf tribe, and Red's cousin on his mother's side. Oh yeah, Red's half Native American. I didn't really bring it up since it's not really all that important to the plot or his character. Though it does make me wonder why Red didn't try to seek out his extended family, or go live with them after the murder of his parents, as Shadow Wolf and the rest of his tribe were surprised that he was still alive. I guess it's possible he just didn't know where they lived. Either way, the tribe comes together and agree that they're willing to save Red. Well, the chief gives the okay to go save him. Shadow Wolf has to do all the work on his own. Shadow Wolf's section is mainly stealth-based, as he'll have to sneak around the area, silently killing Diego's men in search of Red. He uses a bow and arrow, with his special ability letting you ignite the arrow and set enemies on fire. This area ends in a boss battle against Man-Bear Pig.
There is something out there which threatens our very existence, and may be the end to the human race as we know it. I'm talking, of course, about Man-Bear Pig.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what this guy's deal is, as he just sorta shows up and we start fighting him. I know he's meant to be just a guy wearing a bear pelt, but he's able to leap around like crazy and only makes bear sounds, so I don't know if he's channeling the bear spirit or something, or if I'm reading way too much into a simple boss battle.
It's been a week since General Diego captured me. I don't know nothing about bounty hunting, but I've been a slave once, and I ain't gonna never do it again.
Cousin Red? Shadow Wolf?
After Shadow Wolf frees Red and we part ways with future playable character, Buffalo Soldier, we take control of the cowboy again as we need to sneak through this mine. Well, sneak is a generous word, as while you do start off with only a knife, and the game tells you how to avoid enemies, it really doesn't matter if you're spotted, as you can safely knife spam them before they can shoot and kill you. You do have to find various keys in this level in order to progress, so that's something. After bumping into Katie, who's managed to get herself captured again, we'll end this area with a boss fight against the TNT brothers, Ted and Tony. They go down like chumps. Next up, our last new playable character, Buffalo Soldier. So, what's his deal exactly? Well, let's ask Bob Marley.
Buffalo Soldier, in the heart of America, stolen from Africa, brought into America, she was fighting on your rival.
Seeing the threat General Diego poses, he wants to head back to Brimstone in order to ask the governor to call in support from the US Army. Unfortunately, the only way back there is through the help of some old man dragging a wagon full of TNT. And oh no, it's under attack by bandits. So this section isn't awful, just kinda Like the train section from earlier, the bandits on horses can go down pretty easily, and Buffalo Soldier's special ability is an explosive shot like Annie's, making it even easier to take out a big group of them without much issue. It just feels really slow and boring, not helped as the following level has us doing the same thing, except we're shooting at stationary Native Americans this time. Since the governor is in cahoots with General Diego, you can more or less guess what happens when Buffalo Soldier shows up to ask for his help.
Governor, you gotta call General Bowden right away, sir.
Who let you in here, soldier?
There's a renegade general on your territory. His name is Diego. He's running a gold mine, and he's using slave labor. It's a job only the U.S. Army can handle, sir. He has an army, and a fort, too.
Well, thank you, soldier. Mr. Diego is one of my biggest contributors. I'm sure this is all a simple misunderstanding. But Mr. Kelly here, he's gonna take good care of you.
With the Buffalo Soldier dead, Probably. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense for him to still be alive considering what he knows. We switch back to Red and Shadow Wolf as they try to escape Diego's compound. This is a level that on paper is probably pretty simple, but my dumbass ended up making it more difficult for myself. So the obvious objective is to do something about the guy on the Gatling gun, who I managed to deal with by luring him away from his gun and killing him. But that doesn't end the encounter or hint on what to do next. No, you now have to find a way into the walls that lead up to the Gatling gun. It's not obvious, mainly because you've never had to do something like this until now, but you have to hop up and climb in through this window up here. From there, the encounter continues and you'll fight your way through all the guys inside the building. So not a hard or even frustrating level, just a little confusing, mostly because of all the information on what you're supposed to do is communicated during the cutscene and not shown on the screen.
Revenge shall be mine!
Time to settle up the score for the murder of my parents. While I compared Colonel Darren to Guts before, it's not exactly accurate, as while both lost an arm and replaced it with a cannon, how they did it is slightly different. In the case with the Colonel here, it's actually a shoulder-mounted cannon, which he is stupidly accurate with. This fight with him is all about using the scenery to block his shots and find an opening to hit him. In this case, it's when he takes his stance to fire a cannonball. I'm not quite sure if this is a glitch or not, but anytime he'd take his tank pose, a large ball of light would surround him, which, while a good visual cue to prepare myself, it also made it hard to shoot him. Hitting him before he can fire, it'll stun him and open him up for big damage. Run around the map, find an opening again, rinse and repeat until he goes down. Unfortunately, during the battle, our cousin Shadow Wolf was fatally injured, but he spurs us on to continue the fight and to go after Diego. Rest in peace, Shadow Wolf. You are my cousin, and part of the same tribe, and that's it. I wish I could give a better eulogy, but all the characters in this game are as deep as a puddle. The following encounter has us going up against General Diego's heavily armed war train, packed with his soldiers and tons of weapons. The first phase on horseback has you picking off his men as they shoot from the train's windows, until you can get the chance to hop on board and pull a lever to disconnect part of the train. During the second phase, a kindly old man on a handcart will ride by on the opposite track and offer his assistance, letting us use his Gatling gun to attack the train. Picking off more of Diego's men and shooting through the armor protecting the train will do enough damage to destroy the engine and stop the train, segueing into a boss battle with the general. He'll start off by throwing more of his guys at us, while taking pot shots from the windows of the train, using his flare to try and hit you with his cannons. After knocking his health down about half, he'll come out and fight Red one-on-one. The two of them running around the field, taking shots at each other, until finally I send his ass to hell.
I have gold! Lots of it! You can have it if you spare my life! Whiskey, women, fine weapons, anything you want. What do you say, partner?
With the men responsible for carrying out the hit on Red's parents dead, that only leaves one loose end, Griff. But before we can start figuring out where the hell he is, it's time for the Battle Royale. So when you hear the words Battle Royale, what comes to mind? For some, it might be the 1999 Japanese novel of the same name. For the overwhelming majority, it's probably Fortnite. Either way, you probably expect a huge and chaotic free-for-all of people whittling each other down until there's only one person left, more or less playing like the game's showdown mode. But unfortunately, that's not what we get. Instead, it's just a lackluster series of duels against people we've never seen before, and it ends rather anticlimactically, with the governor hijacking the Battle Royale, disqualifying Jack Swift and Annie Stokes for no reason at all, just so he can ensure that his guy, Mr. Kelly, wins. And after kicking his ass, we learn who the governor really is.
Well, Red, you're good. I'll give you that. But of course you'd have to be to live through what you did. Still, I'm afraid that we're gonna have to end right here and now, what we should have ended so many years ago.
That pistol. The governor has been Griff all along. I mean, I think almost all of you have pieced that together by now. The evidence was extremely obvious, but oh man, no way. After finishing off Mr. Kelly, Red will team up with Jack Swift and Annie Stokes to storm the governor's mansion and bring him down once and for all. This final section is extremely frustrating, thanks to the overwhelming number of enemies you have to fight, combined with having to keep Jack and Annie alive. The first two sections aren't too bad, assuming you make good use of cover and keep an eye on your teammates. It's the third part that's the worst, as you have to protect Jack Swift for a solid 3 minutes while he picks the door. You're being attacked on all sides, most of the enemies you're facing have a health bar and are very tanky, so you can't waste too much time focusing on one of them for too long. Adding into that, several of them will be perched up above or right out of sight, so if you're not constantly moving around and searching for them, it's easy to overlook someone shooting at Jack. It feels a lot like the mission where we control General Diego. Its only saving grace being that we do have checkpoints and don't have to do the whole thing in one perfect run. Once we're finally inside the house, Annie will go her own separate way, leaving Red and Jack to search for the governor. This area is a little easier than the outside, though it can still feel overwhelming as I did die a few times, but there's more places for cover and you don't have to protect your partner as much. After finding a secret door, Jack will stay behind to fight off our pursuers and Red will continue onward, eventually reuniting with Annie and then the Buffalo Soldier. Wait, why the hell is he still alive? What possible use could he serve the governor after he discovers his corruption? Seems like it would have made way more sense to kill him and bury him. It's not like anyone's going to miss him. Super easy to cover up his death as being caused by the Mexican army, or Native Americans, or shit, frame him as a deserter. Maybe the devs didn't want the player to feel too sad, since we already lost Shadow Wolf. That, or only killing off their minority characters, may have been a bad look. I don't know. Thankfully, this last section is considerably easier than the last few levels, as first we need to just take out the remainder of the governor's troops, and protect Buffalo Soldier as he tries to open the gate to get us up above. He doesn't need to try too hard, as the governor is more than eager to open the door for him with dynamite. We'll then get into one last duel, avenging our pa, and bringing an end to the game.
Never did like him much.
Jack?
Well, Red, I'm not saying Griffin didn't deserve it, but he was the governor. I reckon the army will be sniffing around here and... Well, I'd hate to see you hang after all you've done. 5,000 in gold sound like a fair bounty?
Give it to them. It never was about the money.
And that was Red Dead Revolver. For beating the game, you unlock the Scorpion Revolver, the same gun your pa had back in the day, and the overall best gun in the game. While you can go through the campaign again and just trivialize every encounter with the thing, you've also now unlocked Bounty Hunter mode, which lets you replay all the levels, but now with specific objectives in mind that you have to fulfill in order to actually complete the level, bringing some much needed challenge to the game. Bounty Hunter mode combined with Showdown mode really gives Red Dead Revolver some replayability. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with it. Just a simple and linear game that doesn't take itself too seriously and can be comfortably beaten in around 8 hours. I found it a fun experience, with some cool characters and a game that didn't feel too bloated or dragged on too long. While I think the game is balanced in its challenge, there are some bullshit moments of fake difficulty here and there. I also think we should have gotten more chances to play as the other characters, especially during missions where we team up with them. This is another one of those games where, outside of a graphical facelift, I don't really think requires a remake, mostly because it would 100% be redone and made in the style of the Red Dead Redemption series. That, while I have no doubt would probably turn out amazing, I think would lose part of the game's charm by making it this bigger, open-world cowboy sim. That, and since they would no doubt lean more into realism, we'd lose the more over-the-top and out-there boss fights. It's not a perfect game. It may have been too simple and played it too safe, as more ambitious titles like Gun, for example, would do what it did, but much better. But it's a little gem from the age of gaming where developers had more ideas, budgets were smaller, and not every big release was expected to reinvent the wheel. If I'm being honest, if you're a fan of the Red Dead Redemption series, you may not end up liking this one, as they're too fundamentally different from each other. However, if you're someone who doesn't have the time to play a 20 to 40 hour campaign, and are looking for something you can beat in a weekend, you can't go wrong with Red Dead Revolver. It actually made me interested in trying out more Western-themed games, so maybe I'll try out Gun or Darkwatch sometime down the road before diving into the Redemption series. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, folks. So this month should be way more consistent with releases than last month, mainly as I'm covering games with shorter runtimes. Also, you may have noticed, no sponsor on this video. Yeah, so I kind of cryptically alluded to it in one of the community posts, but the whole reason my schedule was out of whack was because of the sponsors. They didn't put any restrictions on me and basically let me do my own thing. They were just slow to hear back from and get approval to post the videos. Sponsors won't be a consistent thing on my channel. It's still too small to really get noticed by these bigger brands. But any opportunities that do show up and I do trust, I'll try to plan well in advance and avoid screwing up my releases again. And of course, don't feel obligated to buy something or even watch the sponsor read if you don't want to. You guys just watching these videos is more than enough support. Next week, I'm going to tackle Condemned Criminal Origins. And after that, I'm still trying to decide, but I might put it to a vote. November, I plan to tackle another big game again, most likely Watch Dogs. And if you saw my latest poll, you know I'm finally getting to Yakuza. After thinking it over, I think going in release order is the best way to go, as it will really help capture just how much this series has evolved over the last 2 decades. I'm still working out on what projects to finish off the year with, but I'll also probably drop the GTA Trilogy compilation video sometime next month too. Again, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and comment down below. Have you ever played Red Dead Revolver? How does it compare to similar games like Gun, Darkwatch, or Call of Juarez? And do you want me to play any of those for the channel? If you're new to the channel, I would love it if you subscribed, especially now as we're eking towards 50k subs. Check out the recommended video here at the end, or my list of retrospectives. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.